This is the plaintiff, Gary Schmaus. He says the defendant is his neighbor, and his trees damaged his fence. He complained to the guy about his encroaching trees. He did nothing about it. And when a hurricane hit, 30 feet of his fence was destroyed. He had to spend money fixing his fence, dealing with all the debris, and is suing the defendant for the $3,168.24 he surely owed. This is the defendant, Mark Stachecki. He says his trees aren't the problem. The plaintiff's old, warped fence actually fell into his trees, not the other way around, as the plaintiff likes to pretend. The plaintiff is in big trouble here because he trespassed onto his property and actually cut down his trees. He now has to replace his beautiful trees, and if anyone's owed money today, it's not the plaintiff. He's accused of not grooming. The defendant has filed a countersuit for $5,000 for tree replacement costs.
All parties, please raise your right hand.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket. The plaintiff says his neighbor's tree encroached on his property and damaged his fence during a hurricane. The defendant says the fence was erect before the tree hit. It's the case of Rock Me Like a Hurricane.
Thank you, Douglas. Gary Schmaus?
Yes.
You are suing the person who owns the property next to yours in Florida, Mark Stachecki?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. For him refusing to remedy a problem on his property that was affecting your property. What was going on?
Sure. In April of 2017, I contacted Mr. Stachecki.
You owned a summer home in Florida?
I bought the home 5 years ago. My stepson and his wife and my 3 grandkids live there. They've lived there for 2.5 years.
Okay. And that was where, in what city? Sarasota?
Correct.
Okay. So you own the home next door to that home?
Yes.
And you don't live there either?
My mother passed away and she willed it to me.
Okay. So is anybody living there or no?
Right now, no. I'm trying to retire.
To be able to live there?
Yes, that's
Okay.
what I want, yes.
All right. So where do you live now?
Wisconsin.
Where do you live now?
In Michigan.
Okay. All right. So what happened?
I contacted Mr. Stachecki because my tenant, who is my stepson, showed me that there were a couple trees that were on his property that were hanging over the fence. Our entire backyard is fenced in, and was causing damage to the tree or to the fence, pushing it in, and so forth.
Okay, so not just hanging over, but also
Pushing
growing
it in.
into. All right. When you contact him, how do you contact him? By mail?
Phone.
By phone. And you tell him what?
We have a problem. I said, you've got some trees that are overhanging. This one's hanging on my fence, causing damage. If we end up with a bad storm, there's going to be a lot of damage.
And what did he say?
He said he had some problems up there with his wife, was in jail, this, that, and the other thing. He didn't have any money, and just kind of ignored it.
Were you confiding in some complete stranger that your wife was in jail?
No, it was problems I had at work, you know. But my problem was that I have pictures here showing that the tree was not the problem, that his fence was leaning into my tree.
Okay.
And that,
Do you do both? So you have pictures before Hurricane Irma, and you have pictures before Hurricane Irma, right? 'Cause-
Before, during, and after.
Yeah, right now I just want both of your pictures from before Hurricane Irma. This is?
Plaintiff
Okay.
and defendant.
You can
up.
come over here if
Sure,
you want.
Come right up.
Let's come over here and show me what I'm looking at
Right
here.
in this corner.
All right, which yard is this? Which yard is this? Are these two different yards? Are they the same yard? I don't get it.
This is both on the side
Both of
the
them
fence.
are on his yard.
Correct.
Taken. The photographer's on his yard.
Yes.
Okay, well, even your pictures show that the fence is going towards his yard, which,
Sure.
right, so the fence is falling apart.
Well, some of the later pictures, you'll see how it tore the fence down.
Well, that and a little thing we like to call Irma in my house. But go ahead and go back. Now, these are your pictures. And are these pictures taken before the hurricane?
yes, his son was the ones that texted them to me.
Oh, these are the pictures that his son texted you? Okay.
Yes.
So in these pictures, you can tell the thing is leaning a little bit. But so why didn't you, when you call him and you don't get relief, why don't you take a chainsaw and cut it down?
After I got back to Wisconsin, I wrote him a letter and said, you know, I was willing to, in my
Split
phone
the cost,
conversation.
except for here's the
Yep.
thing, in the state of Florida, and I think you've probably learned this by now, and in most states, you have a right to your property from the ground to the heavens.
And what he did was he had told us after we had the phone conversation that, and I have text messages to and from my son, that he was going to take this tree down.
Okay, but he didn't.
Never did.
And then what happens with the hurricane? When the hurricane happens, what happens?
Then what ends up happening is the tree...
Let me see post-Irma pictures.
Sure.
Those are going to look bad, right? Because you're in Sarasota.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so a big chunk of the fence comes down. Which tree is this? Is this that tree?
Yes.
It's a big tree. How big is the tree?
20-some feet tall.
All right, so when this happens, what do?
My stepson, starts to do the cleanup, and because there's all sorts of debris all over the backyard, the fence is down, and in fact, he did, and there's a picture here also, where he did cut the tree off at the lot line.
Now you sent. Let me ask you a question because I'm looking at texts. Who are these texts between you and him?
Between the defendant and my stepson.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand. At some point, you sent somebody out there before the hurricane to remedy the situation, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And what happened?
When the guy I had watching the house knew about it that does tree work. And he was in Georgia at the time, so he had to wait a couple weeks before he got back out of Georgia to come down. When he did do it, he was trying to cut the tree down. They said that they wanted proof of insurance of his company before they could touch the tree.
Who said that? The stepson?
That was, yes.
Why?
Because this was a big tree. He's taking that tree down. It could end up on my screening over the swimming pool, on the house.
Ay, Dios mío.
So I own the tree, you have a fence, my tree blows down on your fence during a hurricane. Am I responsible for your fence?
Yes,
Why?
because the tree's on your property.
Okay, but it's a huge hurricane.
Well, that's what insurance is for.
Don't have insurance.
Oh, that's too bad.
Am I responsible?
Sure.
Really?
100%.
100%?
100%.
With a 140-mile-an-hour wind?
Yep.
Really?
It's on your property.
Would you bet me on it? Would you bet me on it? How much will you bet? You really want to bet me?
Yeah.
I
We'll bet you. I do. 100%.
No.
All of it.
No, you don't.
No.
Going inside the courtroom.
Mr. Stachecki, let me hear your side of this.
Well, I never received a letter from him stating anything like that. The only thing I talked to him about was that he was suing me and that he was putting a lien on my house because of my tree.
That's what he said to you?
Yes.
Okay, and?
And, well, this is pictures of the fence after, and my brother-in-law was just there over the last weekend,
Okay.
and that's...
Who's this fellow right here with the
That's
bandana
Justin.
pointing a finger?
My stepson.
Your stepson. What's he saying?
That's what the letter underneath says.
Oh, okay. I am Kenneth K. I was asked by my brother-in-law to check on his property. On my arrival, I walked inside the home and started taking pictures. I then walked to the back of the property, and I was approached by his neighbor who was at the fence, leaning over, pointing and yelling in an aggressive manner, telling me I cannot take pictures. I told him I was on private property. I could take pictures of anything in the yard. He became angry and asking who I was, what was I doing there, why was I taking pictures. I told him it doesn't matter who I am. I'm here because I was asked to come and check on the property. This is when I began to feel uneasy. He jumped down from the fence and walked out to my car that was parked in Mark's driveway. My wife was waiting for me in the vehicle. He began yelling and taking pictures of my wife in the vehicle. My wife began to feel threatened and suggested we leave, so we drove away. And here's a picture of him going over with his foot. What's up with that? Okay, not a great idea. Not a great idea to tell people on someone else's property they can't take pictures. What the heck?
Well, here, part of this, there's a little more history.
Right, but why would any history, no matter what you told me, why would any history ever involve your stepson leaning over property saying, hey, you can't take pictures on someone else's property? I don't know. Why would that?
I have no idea.
Yeah, exactly. And Justin over here had the unmitigated chutzpah to go onto your property and cut the tree, right?
Yes.
Okay. And now you're suing for $5,000?
Well, that's what the amount was that he was trying to sue me for.
So tit for tat. All right. Now, I've got here a lawsuit against you for $5,000 for trespassing onto his property. What's your response to his lawsuit against you? Because apparently your agent, your stepson, trespassed onto somebody else's property and cut a tree down.
He's frustrated. Mr. Stakecki, he doesn't probably even realize it, but he had people in there who were just nesting in his house without,
Okay,
I'm sure.
Mr. Schmaus, listen carefully to me.
Yep.
You're dead wrong on the law, and these are your responsibilities. You have a responsibility to cut down what is offending. You have a responsibility to go from the earth to the heavens, even if it ends up dismantling most of his tree. Anything that is growing over your property, you not only have the right, it's worse than that. You have the responsibility. That means you can't sue them to do that work. That means you guys needed to have done that work. So all this time that you're writing him letters and telling him, do something. Judge, you didn't do something. You're the guys that had to do something. And that fence was old, rickety, and leaning into his side, okay? And then a Category what? By the time it hit Sarasota, what was it?
It was
3?
No,
or
way
4?
way down.
It wasn't that down. I mean, you guys got hit pretty bad.
Not real bad. That was the only damage that we had
Yeah,
in the
of course,
yard.
because you're in Wisconsin, so it didn't feel very bad to you. Yeah, because we build them to withstand the hurricanes.
Right.
Okay, we build them out of block. Okay, all right. So no. Either your damage was an act of God, and everybody has to pick up their own crayons, as we say after hurricanes, or your damage was due to worse, the negligence that you and your stepson exhibited by not cutting down the tree. If the tree is growing into, God did you a favor, really, by going to your property and removing the tree. Did he leave a stump or no?
No.
Okay. There is an exception to trespass. No doubt he trespassed onto your property. And normally you don't have a right to trespass onto somebody's property. But there is an exception if that property is damaging your property and stopping you from the enjoyment of your property. So I'm not going to order him to pay you $5,000 for the removal of that. But I'm also not going to award you a penny. So on your lawsuit against him, 0. And on your lawsuit against him, also 0. Good luck, folks. Imagine that. Maybe one day you guys will be neighbors. I hope so. Can you put this behind you and kind of be friendly? And I hope so. All right.
Well, I think both parties learned something about trees in this really fascinating case. Mr. Schmaus, what do you think about what the judge just found?
Well, I tried to be a good neighbor, and we tried to get things cleaned up.
But you learned it was your problem all along.
Well, I don't believe
you
that.
could have rectified. Look, it's the law.
I understand that.
Well, you're going to learn a hard lesson.
Well.
I think the hard way. You already have. You lost the case.
That's okay.
Okay. Goodbye. Good luck. I think he's a little stubborn. What do you think?
Yes, I do believe it.
I think so. Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
But
The bottom line is there's a new fence up there, and your tree's gone.
Yes,
Everything's okay, right?
So far.
You're happy.
yes.
Good for you. Well, and you learned a little bit about trees, too.
Yes, I did.
I did. Okay, good enough. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
All righty. Bye-bye. Harvey?
Okay, two things. If it's an act of God and the hurricane blows the tree down, I don't have to pay you. Secondly, you are allowed to actually take an encroaching branch and you can cut it off to the property line, but you can't enter your neighbor's property without their permission.